Hey there, everyone. This is Tom Lord, and I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for your continued support of our page, Safe St. Cloud. You know, Safe St. Cloud is about community, coming together to fight back against the negative changes that have been happening in our city, St. Cloud, Florida. When we come together and work together and fight together, we get wins. Take, for example, Thursday night at that city council meeting, the community came together, fought back, and we got a win. It was a small win because we know that developer will come back and God only knows what they'll come back with. But if we keep working together as a community, we can truly save St. Cloud. So thank you. And without further ado, here is LEACHATE, Toxic Soup in the Cloud, Part 2, joined in progress.
Clearly, as you know,
Yeah.
there is. Now, Michael, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's me. I wanted to add to that. You'll hear some people say, well, we've taken leachate in from the beginning. We've treated it. First of all, have we tested properly? And this is, that's the point that Ariel will make.
Right.
The other thing is, they talk about the lawsuit. Well, when JED, and you have to look at what they did do, and they snuck in that decision. They made the county vote on something without public information of accepting this coal ash from Puerto Rico, which is now in the landfill. And
So they, by making that decision, in our opinion, the city has a leg to stand on when it comes to that lawsuit.
Absolutely.
Because they've changed the
They changed the
characterization of the leachate
Right.
by making that decision to bring in millions of tons of coal ash.
Right.
So one of the things I think to kind of break it down a little bit is two of the things that I think that stand out to me and what we've discussed is, number one, just like the resin in the water, we said that there's certain tests that need to be done. Now, for the water, obviously, it's mostly ground contamination that mixes with the resin, which is what,
Organic salts, yeah.
correct.
And then goes through the chlorination process.
Now, the thing is,
Groundwater contamination.
Yeah.
correct. Now, the thing with the situation with the leachate is it goes into the dump, which other things go into the dump. And we don't have a controlled environment, per se, of what goes in there. So in order to get an accurate test of what exactly would be consumed, whether it be through the air, through the water, through any situation, you would have to literally take every single chemical that this would come in contact with and see the adverse reaction. Am I correct?
That would be more representative of what would.
So Ariel, you spoke on the test that Vanderbilt University did. Would you like to explain that and why that's pertinent and what it more closely represents to realistic
Right.
conditions? Conditions, thank you.
So a lot of times you'll hear that the coal ash is not toxic. And that's because they use the TCLP test to extract it and determine a result, a toxicity result. But Vanderbilt University did a test on Agramax, the material specifically coming from AES, and this was also funded in conjunction with EPA.
Okay.
And they created the LEAF framework, which is the Leaching Environmental Assessment Framework, LEAF. And this is important because it's a distinction between the TCLP test, which is only a single point pH test, which is like 4.5, slightly acidic. And then you've got the LEAF testing, which is a varying pH level. So you can test it at different pHs, you can test it at different contact times in solution. And that'll tell you a more accurate representation of field conditions. That's why it more accurately leaches out contaminants. But because it's such a high level, if that were the required test, coal ash would be hazardous waste, and it would have to be stored in that type of facility.
As it should be.
Well, yeah, as it should be. But because our government wants to encourage recycling of coal ash and its beneficial use program, that's why it's regulated. That's why it's regulated the way that it is.
Yeah. It's very concerning when you think about it that way, When it's broken down.
Right.
I mean, the things that are going on in St. Cloud right now really.
Well, one of the things that you and I discussed, Brady, was if it's not harmful, then why are the citizens of Puerto Rico fighting to have it removed from their own island?
Right.
And if it's their waste and it's their byproduct of whatever they've created, why wouldn't they want to keep it on their island? And I know it's a money maker per se, so that even raises more questions to me about why you wouldn't want to keep it.
And unfortunately, because they were using coal ash as backfill in their construction projects, they now have a major groundwater contamination problem. So
Wow.
that's why they're determined to get it off the island.
Of course. So what would make it different from there than to here,
Mhm.
other than the fact that I would think, and maybe I'm incorrect, but we have even more foreign objects to introduce to it.
Mhm.
Essentially,
I think the difference between there and here currently is that we're storing it at a level 1 facility, correct?
Mhm.
Where they were using it without any protection underneath. They were
Right.
using
They
it
were
as
using it-
filter.
Right, filtered.
Essentially.
well, but I mean,
Yeah.
essentially, why couldn't they store it the way we stored it as well?
Yeah, they don't have a class 1 facility
Right.
available.
Right.
That's why.
So what's concerning to me is, obviously, we know now, having learned through the water situation with the resin, clearly,
Mhm.
that when the chemical change occurs, when it starts to pick up other things, that's when we really can't decipher what kind of a detriment
Mhm.
it really is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
and that the unknown is the scariest part, I think,
Right.
for everybody.
Right.
And just like the water, I've never been concerned about the raw product. I've always been concerned about the organic solids attaching to the water,
Right, the
to the
contaminants
resin.
attached to the resin that
And
you
then the
ingest.
resin with the contaminants going through the chlorination process and being put into our homes,
Mhm.
being told it's safe.
Right.
Here, very similar.
Mhm.
You've got
Raw
coal
material.
ash
Mhm.
that is being treated with limestone to basically encapsulate the coal ash, the metals,
right.
and everything that's not supposed to get into the ground.
Right.
You know,
Make it safer,
Contained.
basically.
Mhm.
right? But at some point, limestone starts to break down,
Correct.
and the lining from the storage facility
Eventually breaks
eventually
down.
will break down,
Mhm.
and then you've got a world of a mess on your hands.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's crazy.
And that's if it's not getting to you by breathing initially,
Right,
as
yeah.
Ariel pointed out initially.
Right. So particulate matter contamination is a major issue.
So,
And I know the JED Landfill is also incinerating their leachate.
Wow.
They're they have,
Yay.
in order to reduce the amount of leachate that they have to worry about disposing of, they burn it.
so what, do we have any idea, have there been any tests done to what the residual health effects could be from that?
Well, if you look up exposure to leachate, if you just, do a Google search, or we can provide a link to some information.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Just, inhalation of nitrous oxide, I believe nitric, sorry.
Yeah.
Correct me, nitric
Nitric
oxide.
oxide.
Now, do you know if there's any process that they're doing when it's initially brought in to keep that air spread down? Like, are they immediately wetting it with water?
I think they wet it at the facility itself at AES. I believe during the packaging process and loading the trucks, they keep it wet. I don't know
but
whether
is it continued to be moistened when it's in the plant?
I have no idea.
Yeah, and that's
Right.
another thing. We want it to be moistened because we don't want the air particulates, but
Right.
then we're also
Breaking it down.
moistening it.
Yeah, and you're keeping it wet, which helps the chemicals
To break
leach
down.
leach out.
Yeah, so it just, there's nothing in my mind based on the information that I've learned about leachate that makes me feel comfortable with it being.
Well, it seems like it's a
Right.
catch-22.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to go somewhere.
Right.
So the argument would be, well, why not St. Cloud?
Well, because I don't want to be breathing and
Right.
consuming it. Do you want to be
No.
breathing and consuming it? Does anybody here want to breathe and consume
No.
it?
And it's not
Right.
here now, too, so
You did
why you
mention-
gotta bring it back
right.
in?
You did mention in North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
They were using it
Also as filter.
as fill dirt, and
And
now
now they have to do a big cleanup project there because they contaminated the groundwater.
Wow.
you know,
That's a pleasant thought.
can you
Yeah.
tell me, have you ever found any research or articles that have been positive?
Beneficial? Yeah, right.
The beneficial use is not beneficial. Yeah.
Okay.
No, the answer is no.
So
So-
essentially, it's economically it's beneficial for the
Financially,
person who's bringing it
There's a
in.
lot of lobbying groups that encourage beneficial use because it's lucrative. It's a moneymaker. But you have, remember the Chinese drywall incident
Yes.
in 2007, I
Yes.
believe? Why do you think that was an issue? Because they used coal ash in the gypsum
To
board.
break it down, to break.
Well,
And the
no,
gypsum-
to make the material to sell to people.
Right.
They use coal.
China used
Right.
coal ash.
Right.
Wow.
And we already know that gypsum itself, when it's broken down, causes lung cancer and things
Right.
like that, which we learned through
Right.
the
So, but you
the
have
towers falling in 9/11.
right. But you had mercury vapor being off-gassed by the gypsum board.
Okay, so I mean that's such a great point.
Mhm.
If you were concerned about Chinese drywall, you should be just as concerned about coal ash and leachate.
Exactly.
Well, even more in my opinion, because it's spreading even further. Not every home had that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. Thank God not every home had that issue. But
Well, and one of the things that we also discussed was there's cattle out there. People are eating that cattle. If they're consuming it up through the ground too, even if it's not infecting your water supply, it could be affecting your food supply.
Yeah,
Right.
the retention ponds that the cows drink out of,
Correct.
and
Correct.
I wonder if there's, I mean, you know, obviously, it hasn't been here that long, and obviously it's going to take time to see the long-term effects.
right.
But I wonder if any farmers that are close to that area have been noticing anything out of the ordinary with their cattle or their
Mhm.
livestock, any of that. That
Right.
would be something really interesting to
Well,
reach out and,
But the unfortunate thing too is a lot of this is bioaccumulative, so it takes time to build up
yeah.
Sure.
to be a problem.
Yeah,
major
it's
problem.
just like
And by the time it is a problem, it's kind of too late to address it. That's kind of the unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
So even if it's not a major issue now, it's still something that we have to be careful of. And that's all
Right.
we're asking the city to do is
Well,
consider the long-term impact
sure.
of their decisions and make smart decisions that are then going to impact your citizenry for years to come. So just think about what you're doing before you do it. Don't rely on, expert testimony to tell you that it's safe.
Right.
Okay, Michael. You
Well,
want-
yeah, there was another issue too that we brought forth was the coal ash resolution, because we have a landfill that's, they call it class one.
Class 1 land.
Class one that will accept it, and a lot of states do not have that.
Mhm.
So the coal ash resolution was just a simple resolution that says, if we have to use coal ash in creating electricity, that we will take that and store it in our landfill, only within the state, not to bring anything else in.
Mhm.
So the more coal ash we bring in from out of state, with all the development that's going on, with garbage going to the landfill, now we have a bigger mess.
Yeah.
So it's another reason why, we don't want the leachate, we gotta stop the leachate, don't even bring the leachate back in,
Yeah.
and then also slow up and just
Limit the amount of
limit the
coal ash
amount of
coming
coal ash
in.
to our state, like cleaning your own room. So,
Does anyone know, Ariel or Michael, do either of you know, I know you mentioned North Carolina.
Mhm.
Are there any other, in Tennessee, is there any other states that we have had any kind of laws maybe imposed on the books where they say we don't want to store it in our state?
Yeah.
Mhm. I believe Iowa, or I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
Either Iowa or Illinois.
But there is.
They passed one of the first states to pass a law that bans coal ash.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay, so I mean, it's just proof that, it's not good. If whole states are coming out and banning it from coming within their four walls, then I think a lot more people should be concerned. The problem is ignorance to the actual issue.
exactly.
Yeah.
If it wasn't
And it's
for,
invisible too.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen until later.
Right,
Yeah.
like you said, right. And the same thing, not knowing the long-term effects and coming down the line, and like Ariel stated,
Mhm.
the long-term effects when they occur, by then, what are you going to do? I
Yeah.
mean, that's a scary situation
I
to think
feel like
about.
we're having the same exact discussion as we do about the water with a different problem.
Yeah.
It's so parallel.
What happens to the biosolids at the end of it?
Yeah.
Where do those get applied? Are we going to put them on our crops?
That's a pleasant thought.
Are we treating it with coal ash first to stabilize it? Because I believe that's also something that they do, is stabilize biosolids with coal ash.
Yeah.
And then put
And
that on.
this is the water
And then
that's
put
going
that on
to be
your
used to
crops.
water your grass.
Mhm.
That's going to be in your toilet.
If you have livestock, feed, water your animals,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's
We used to be a cattle town.
So we just
Yeah,
want to
Now we're
make
a coal ash
sure.
town.
Yeah. So we just want to make sure, like I said before, just show us the data. Test the effluent with the so the
That
effluent.
sounds so redundant
I
from
know
us.
the stuff coming out of the plant. Show us that it's clean. That
Yeah.
there's no radioactive chemicals. That there's no heavy metals that made it through the treatment processes, whatever they were. Just want to make sure it's clean, actually clean water.